Welcome to the Simply Wholehearted Podcast with Amy Wicks, your wholehearted life and business coach. You should know this podcast will inspire you to grow in self-awareness, be passionate about your faith, and get clear on your calling. If you are new here, then welcome to a community of multi-passionate women who love to go deep on topics like faith, Enneagram, relationships, leadership, and community. This conversation might provide the step you need to make the change you desire. So, let's get started. Hey friend, I'm so glad that you are here. Whether you've been a long-time listener or you're brand new, you are going to love this conversation. I wanted to invite you as you begin 2025 to explore a topic that is commonly misunderstood. Really, it's a word, abundance. Yep, the word abundance. In John 10:10, Jesus says, "The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly." But what does Jesus mean by living an abundant life? And what does that mean today when we are surrounded by different ideas of what abundance looks like? Well, in summary, abundance isn't just about wealth or financial freedom. It is really about aligning every part of our lives, our time, our resources, our relationships, and even our calling with God's purpose for each of us. Now, I know the world, or in general, our society often equates abundance with having more money and stuff. The Word of God reminds us that true abundance comes from stewardship, wisdom, and trusting God's provision. And today, I am so excited and honored that Anthony O'Neill is joining me to have this conversation about abundance. His newest book is Take Your Seat at the Table, and he shares his journey from homelessness to abundance in this book, but also I am confident that his insights are going to challenge you to rethink abundance, not just as money, but as an opportunity to live with freedom, intentionality, and generosity. And here's something to consider as you listen. Did you know your personality type or Enneagram type is often connected to how you view and approach money? Yeah, if you've ever wondered how your unique wiring influences your financial habits and your holistic story, I'd love to talk with you. I actually am offering a free clarity call right now. My calendar is open. And so I'd love for you to hop on there so I can explore with you a little bit more about yourself and your story so you can live with wholehearted abundance this year. And while we're on this topic, I wanted to mention that Anthony and I talk about my Wholehearted Abundance Summit that is happening in March. I know I hadn't planned on it, but it just fits so perfectly with the conversation. I was excited to tell him about it. And of course, I was excited to tell you about it. So I have linked the waitlist information to check out in the show notes. And if you happen to sign up today, there are some bonuses included. You're not even registered for the conference, but I wanted those who are getting on the waitlist to get a little something special while they wait for all the goodies that will be coming along with the summit. So let's step right into this conversation and this year with a renewed understanding of what it means to live a life of abundance. Well, we're going to jump right in, Anthony, because I know you are a busy man. You're a popular guy. You have really, your journey is something to behold. I've been following for a few years, and really, your journey starts at homelessness. So we're going to just start there. Now you're empowering so many others. Can you give us a little bit of the backstory before we dive into this new book?
Yeah, Amy, we can go anywhere you want, man. I want to definitely serve your people. Thank you again for having me on your show. But
Love
when
it.
I think about like my story and my past, I think of a young man who lacked the wisdom and lacked the knowledge of how to really steward money. And so I grew up in a very strong Christian faith home to where one side was Southern Baptist, and another side was Church and God in Christ, Kojic. And so two strong Christian worlds, but two completely different worlds from a
Yeah.
spiritual perspective. but the root of the foundation was God. And so growing up, all I heard about money was give God your tithe, and sow into the pastor. But no one really taught me, hey, this is what you do with the other 90% after you tithe. Go start a business, go open up a savings account, go open up a checking account, go do this, go do that. And so I've I've when I graduated high school, I went off to college. And if I'm just being honest with you and transparent, man, I ran away from God. I ran away
Mm,
from my Christian walk because that's all that I knew and that's all I was able to do. I couldn't chill with my friends. There were no movie nights. There were no dating. There was none of that. It was school, church, and home. So when I
mm,
graduated high school, I said, man, I'm going to college and I'm gonna turn up and I'm gonna be me and I'm gonna be the best looking young African American man out there. I'm gonna get all the ladies. I'm gonna have a blast. And I did just that. I had a blast,
mm.
and I accomplished what I said I was going to accomplish. But I was also at the cost of my spiritual walk with God. I was also at the cost of disappointing my parents on how they laid a solid foundation into me. And because of that, I made some poor decisions. That at
Mm.
that time, it unfortunately cost me my college experience that I had to drop out of school. And because I dropped
Wow.
out of school and made those bad decisions, man, my parents was like, yo, since you think you're a grown man, you go and live with that because a grown man can't come home. And that was hard. So now at 19, I'm homeless, sleeping in the back of my car, thinking about suicide, asking people for money, taking baths and showers at the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA when they're open, wash myself in the back seat on the weekends because I couldn't go nowhere else to wash myself. And so it just really hit me. It hit me.
Mm.
It really hit me hard that when I think about that, I get a little emotional because it's like, wow,
Yeah.
look at where God is taking me from now. But it's, I got back on my feet just to keep this story, short and to the point. I got back on my feet because God convicted me in the back of my car and said, because you want to blame everyone else for the decisions you made, you're going to stay here. And he literally had to strip me spiritually and practically
Mm.
naked for me to see the light and to see what the decisions I've made. And man, when he did that, I went home, told my fathers, because I have I have a biological father and a stepfather, and then a biological mom and a stepmom. And I told both of my fathers, I said, man, I'm not a grown man, but I'm ready to learn how to become one. And
Wow.
that's when my life shifted and started changing. I haven't made all the right decisions, but I have made one decision that I'm super proud of, and that is I got back in my walk with Jesus Christ. And
Mm.
since then, I paid off all my debt, and I've
Wow.
just been living this journey of teaching God's um, way when it comes to our finances.
Wow. And there's so much there that I hope my friends go explore. I know in your book, but also you've got a YouTube channel and podcast. You've got a lot of great resources that tell more about your story, sprinkled well throughout all of it.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, and I think this is worth noting. We were chatting a little bit before, we hit record, so to speak. You're now getting your master's. So clearly you've made a couple of decisions to go back to school and here you are,
Yeah.
finishing really well.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned is that I've been able to get out of debt. I've been able to build a certain level of wealth and experience some success in my life. But one of the things that I've learned that one, education is always important, and we will always have to continue learning.
Yeah.
And education continues to evolve me and to grow me. And one of the things my mentors told me not a long time ago, but it was like right when I turned 40, he said, Anthony, people can do two things to you right now when they only should be able to do one. And I was like, what's that? Right now, they can discredit you and they can disagree with you. It was like, so
Mm,
you're teaching finances, but you don't necessarily have the actual accreditation behind you to really make you that thought leader. Everyone is launching a podcast and a YouTube show now. Everyone is saying I'm an expert, but there's not a whole lot of people who's honestly put in the work. And he was like, I would encourage you to consider going back to school and to finish and to get the accreditation behind you so that no one can discredit you. They can only
Mm,
disagree with you. And disagreeing with you doesn't discredit who you are because you put in the work practically and educationally. And I said, man, wow. So I went back and I'm at Virginia Union University, was able to complete my bachelor's there. And also December of 2025, I will be done with my executive MBA. And so I'm excited about that.
that's amazing. Way to go. Well done. I think that sets a great example. And I know that for each one of us, that continuing education looks different, but I think it's a really important word of wisdom to pay attention to, especially as you're starting this year, right? It's January, we're making some decisions for the year ahead. Maybe there's some investment that you need to make for your education accreditation that backing up what you already know and have earned through the School of Hard Knocks, maybe a well-rounded educational experience would help as well. So,
It
so good.
will. It will. I talk about that in my book, Take Your Seat at the Table, that comes out this month as well. Just really, when we really talk about taking the seat at your table, I want people to understand this. If you don't have the education or the knowledge on how to take a seat at the head of your life, right? And I say
Mm,
that from a earthly standpoint, because we all know God is ahead of our life.
yeah.
But here on earth, no one is ahead of me but me, because I'm
Mm,
submitting to Him. But if
yeah.
God says, hey, I want you to build this business, if God says, hey, I want you to lead this family, hey, I want you to lead this community, well, how can we do that if we don't have the proper education? I'm sorry, Chat GPT and YouTube, that's not
Not
education.
enough.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so
Mm-hmm.
you can get information, but if you don't have the practical wisdom and knowledge, and I'm not trying to preach on your show, but God asked Solomon, hey, ask me for whatever you want. And he didn't ask him for the blue check mark on TikTok. He didn't ask him for, the unlimited subscription to Chat GPT. He didn't ask him to destroy all of his haters. He said, God, you've given me this opportunity to lead people. I
Mm,
want to lead them so well, but the only way I can lead them is if you give me your wisdom and your knowledge on how I should do this. And that's what I feel that is important, that if we're really going to take ownership of our life, which that's what the table means, the table represents your life. Well, you got to have the right, proper education to do that. Now, education may look different. Education could
right.
be a 2 year degree program, a bachelor's, a master's, a boot camp. Education could be experience. Education could be a trade school. I think all the time we should be educating to evolve us because it is our responsibility to steward the gift that God has given us. And when we steward that gift well, man, God does marvelous things. And I
Mm,
don't know too many people who steward their gift and they're broke.
yeah.
I don't know too
So
many.
good. Yeah. Well, Anthony, you're welcome to preach anytime on our show. We're always here for it. So it's so good. And I think that nugget of wisdom about Solomon asking for wisdom is a very understated fact that us, as whether we are a leader now, a leader of many, or a leader of just a few in our home, I think that is one of the first things that we should be asking for. And God promises that
Yeah.
He'll give it to us if we ask. So don't hold back from your asking. I'm really excited to hear more about Take Your Seat at the Table. I'd love to hear what was kind of the inspiration to go ahead and write it. And I love that concept about building your table. We here at the Wholehearted community, we talk about building our gathering place. And part of the
Mm,
gathering place is our table.
mm,
And it's about creating that space for others to feel welcome. And like you said, picking strategically those who sit with you to help you build that
mm.
table well. So, we're going to talk more about your top picks. But in the meantime, what has inspired you to write this book? And here you are releasing it this month.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity of work at some amazing places and amazing churches. And I'll never forget that at one particular time I was sitting down doing an interview, and the interviewer asked me, you've done a great job at building everyone else's legacy and building everyone else's dream. We want to set that aside and ask you this question. What dream are you building for yourself? What
Mm,
legacy are you building for yourself? And Amy, what was so rough for me that day is no one's never asked me that question before.
wow.
What are you doing for yourself? And I was like, what am I doing? I have a great 401k, but no business, nothing that I own that I could pass down to my kids. And I realized that if I was married at that time and God was to bring me home early, they will
Mm,
only have an insurance policy and a 401k. And a good husband and a good father, maybe with character and integrity. But that's it. And
mm,
I was like, I know God put me on this earth to have more than that. See, a lot of us get confused and we think that Jesus only came down here and God sent his only son to die for our sins. When that wasn't the case, if we go back to John 10, this is just a preacher in me. Jesus said that he came so that we may have life and have it more abundantly. And so
mm,
I'm like, well, if God came down here so that I may have life, he doesn't want me to not enjoy my life. Yeah, struggles will come, trials will come. I will have seasons, but he wants me to enjoy it. And so if he came down here so that way I can enjoy my table, enjoy my life, why am I struggling? Why am I living paycheck to paycheck? Why am I always anxious about something? And so this book was inspired by that. Like, man, God wants me to have an abundant life. I'm not talking about prosperity. I'm talking about just freedom, freedom to enjoy the things that I want to do. If I work hard, I should enjoy my life. If I
mm.
am providing for my family, I should be able to provide and enjoy my life. And I just think a lot of people right now were like me. We were great workers, but we weren't building something for ourselves and our own families. You can have a 9 to 5, but when you come home, what are you building for yourself? What is something that you have that no man nor woman, just God, can take from you? And if
Mm.
you have nothing, this book is for you. If you're like, yo, I want more, this book is for you. And that's why I
Ah,
wrote the book, because I want to leave my family with something more than just a 401k and insurance policy. I want to leave them with wisdom, with knowledge, with experiences, with opportunities, with money, with businesses, and a 401k.
All good things.
All good
Ah,
things.
I'm so excited that we happen to be talking about this in January because in March, I'm actually hosting the first Wholehearted Abundance Summit. I've
Wow.
hosted summits before, but it's helping to equip multi passionate women to live vibrancy in their faith, their family, and finances.
Yeah.
And this is a first with my wholehearted rhythms that I've done in January, where I'm tacking on this bonus about wealth because I think it's a underserved or underspoken topic, especially in the Christian faith. So I'm going to caveat a little bit from the questions that we talked about earlier, but I know you're so good at talking about
Let's do it.
wealth and abundance in the definition of Christ first and kingdom building. Give us a little flavor of how to maybe change our mindset about those terms, because maybe hearing them, catches us off a little bit or throws us off, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. When I think about wealth, I don't think about just money. I think about time.
Yeah.
I think about opportunities. I think about decisions. I think about family. I think about money, right? I was driving with my dad, um, was playing golf on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And my dad is in his 60s and he says, "You know what, son, I'm wealthy." I
Mm.
looked at him and I was like, "You sure you're wealthy?" He was like, "Yes." He said, "The fact that I'm able to sit here and play golf with my son at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a work day, golf course is wide open, but I'm out here enjoying it with my son.
Mm.
I may only make 8,000, $7,000 a month between me and your mama with our, retirement checks and disability checks and et cetera." He said, "But I'm wealthy. I'm wealthy because
Mm.
I get to do the things that I desire to do. I'm wealthy because I get to do the things that God wants me to do. I'm wealthy because I'm still alive and my son is healthy. I'm wealthy because I am a son of God." And I think oftentimes we attach wealth to a lot of money.
Yeah.
When wealth, when money is only a small portion of wealth, right?
So
Wealth is
good.
also mental. Wealth is also spiritual. Wealth is also time. This is why I'm such a huge advocate, Amy, of the word stewardship. Because in a church world, we only think stewardship correlates with money. No, how are you stewarding your time? How are you stewarding
Mhm.
your wife, your husband, your children, your car, your clothes, the air that God has given you every single day? You can name everything around stewardship. And so when I think about kingdom building and kingdom finances and wealth, everything just comes back to stewardship for me. I want to be a good steward of everything. And some people are sort of turned off. I remember, Amy, I was in a teaching a class, said, man, who doesn't want to be a millionaire? And it was like five people raised their hands. And I said, well, tell me why. I said, well, I'm content with where God has me. I said, okay, that's great. Okay. Other person says, well, I don't, it's the love of money that is the root of all evil. And I said, okay. I said, but what if God put something on the inside of you to make $1 million so that way you can give 200,000 back to the church, and then you can give another 200,000 back to another nonprofit? But you're so selfish in thinking that wealth is bad for you to
Mhm.
have it because you don't think God can use it. But no, God has to use your gift to build the kingdom. That's why he fearfully and wonderfully made you. So, yes, the love of money is the root of all evil, but money is not the root of all evil. Where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. So for me, I check it every single year, Amy. I've never asked God for more money. I said, God, I want to be able to give away $300,000 this year. God, I want to be able to give away $100,000. That's wealth.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah,
I can't give $100,000 to my local church, to a nonprofit, if I'm only making $60,000 a year.
that's
So I'm like,
right.
God, I want to give, which means you got to give me more. And the more you give me, the more I'm gonna give back to you. Because I don't want money to rule me. Money is not going to be the head of my table. No, money is a tool at my table, but it's not the head of my table. And I think right now money is the head of a lot of people's table. And that
Yeah.
is an unhealthy head, right? That is an inappropriate head. You should be the head. And I don't want to go all over the place. I'm sorry. I'm just a preacher at the heart.
So good.
Right.
No, I love it. Like I said, you can bring it. I think that's so important because that is serving the master,
Mhm.
the wrong master, right? When
Mhm.
we're looking at it being at the head of the table and it dictating how we spend our time, how we spend our energy, how we even spend our love and our
Yeah.
just what we're our output. So I love how you frame that. I think obviously, again, your book, your materials, your resources, it talks, you talk a lot about this.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's really important, especially for us who are speaking as people who represent Christ and God and the kingdom, that we have this in right order. And we all have our hangups, we all have our struggles, we have our unique scarcity mindsets because of our background and our personality. All of those play into it, but at the heart of it, how is God asking you to steward it? And I love this concept of maybe reframing the conversation with the Lord of going, Lord, okay, I dare you to make it possible to give, that I could give 100,000 this year. How amazing, how remarkable that would be.
I think we just have to have that. You got to have that question. Some people may say, "Well, I don't have 100,000." Okay, cool. Ask God, can you get to a point where you're tithing 500, where you're tithing $1,000?
Yes.
And I think that's the important part. Show God that you genuinely, from your heart, want to be the head of your table, and you want to use your life, your table, to be a blessing to the kingdom, to be a blessing to the people within the kingdom and to the world. And that's one thing that I believe, that when we sit at the head of our table, not only are we taking back control of our lives, but now God can lead us better. And when he can lead us better, we could do so much more, because
Mhm.
my life is not for Anthony O'Neill. My table is not just for me. It is for you, Amy. It is for it is for John. It is for you, Melissa, who's listening, if there is a Melissa. It's for you all who are listening, and it's my life. But my
Mhm.
life is supposed to be an example and a tool to help others win. And I think that's why. when we talk about, my book, Take Your Seat at the Table, how to live an authentic, an abundance, and a free life, right? I want you to have authenticity. I want you to have an abundant life, and I want you to have freedom. Because when you're in bondage, you're not free. And when you're in bondage, you lead wrong, you talk wrong, you feel wrong. And that's just not the place
Mm.
where I want us to be. And so I'm excited about it. When I tell you I'm excited, I can't tell you how excited I am about this book.
Yeah, it's good. I know we'll talk more in the summit and in the coming months about, personality perspective as it relates to wealth and abundance of money. Could
Can't
you
wait.
speak to a minute about the um, breaking through generational cycles? Because what you're talking about is walking in freedom, and freedom requires breakthrough, and breakthrough often means we need to break off
Yeah.
generational cycles. So I know you've got a lot of step-by-step strategies in your book. Can you maybe name one or two that my friend could take today as they listen and are inspired?
One of the things when it comes to generational curses is that if you're going to break it, number one, you got to call it out. I
Mm.
think we're so fearful to say this is a generational curse. This is what it is. We'll run from it. My grandmama's generation, they used to call it, we'll sweep it up underneath the rug.
Hmm.
And I remember one time they swept so much stuff up underneath the rug that one day when you open it up, you saw rats, roaches, nasty things up underneath the rug. Rather than just sweeping it into the broom,
Hmm.
throwing it into the trash. Rather than putting where it needed to be. And I think sometimes if we want to break a generational curse, we got to say that is a curse on our family. And I no longer want to be a part of that. And I'm going to break it. It is
Yeah.
not going to have a strong hold on me. It is not going to scare me. And it's not going to get me. When we can acknowledge it, we can fix it. But when
Mm.
we run from it, it still has control of our table. It is still at the head of our table. And what's happening is we're thinking that we're good because we're not talking about it. We're not seeing the effect of it in the real world. But underneath your brain, underneath your soul and your spirit is eating you alive. And it's
Mm.
just waiting for something to creep up. And so I think that's the one practical thing I can say out of anything, which some people say, well, that's not deep. That's no, 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 no. That's real.
It is
A
very
lot
real.
of people are scared to tell the truth about, this is a problem and I need to address it. And I had to call that on with them within my own family. Like I don't come from a wealthy family. We came from a very comfortable family that was used to living paycheck to paycheck and working like Hebrew slaves. And I said, I don't
Mm.
want that. That is not a blessing. That is not abundance. That is a generational curse. Go out there and work 40 years working 50, 60 hours a week just so you can get a social security check and a small retirement check and live in a house until the day you die, or go out there and work another 40 hours after you've retired. And I'm like,
Right.
that's not what I want. And so I had to call that out and say, okay, that's not it, God. What do I need to do to make sure that that is not me, nor is it my family? And when I called that out, I asked God for the wisdom and knowledge to make sure that I do not go there. And so, from a financial perspective, because I just love giving practical things. I said, this is you, man, we're struggling financially. Let me give you four quick things, and y'all can write this down because this is not in the book. This is just from Anthony, but I break this down in
Love
a
it.
different way in the book, right? It's four quick things. I call it earn. You have to evaluate where you are financially. Then from there, A stands for you have to arrange the vision. What is the vision? Where are you going? Once you arrange the vision, R, you got to render the strategy. What is the
Mm.
strategy and the systems I need to put into place to reach my vision, right? And then once you get that strategy, here's where a lot of people stop at. That strategy and that vision turns into a dream because they never put action to it. So the
Yeah.
N stands for now put in work.
Yeah.
Do the work. If you do the work, you will not be the same by this time next year, guaranteed.
For sure. I love that you called out a very important step of the naming, Anthony. I think that is so valuable because, and there's no shame, there is no dishonor to the legacy that you have been given. It's just realizing that their ceiling is your floor and you were intended to build upon that. And how can you build unto a new legacy? And then hopefully the next generation can also like have more breakthrough and more abundance.
Yes,
You've
ma'am.
given us a lot of practical stuff. And again, I know your resource and your new book. Could you leave us though with this tip? And that is, the concept of the table. I love the symbolism of it. It's beautiful. So, who are the three people that you believe that we need at our table? And maybe a little tip of why you think that's important.
Not such a good question. I'll give you three. There's a total like six or seven in the book. You got to get the book to get it. I promise you'll be a
That's right.
blessing. Because this book, if you get this book, is going to help you set yourself up to be a net worth millionaire. The very first thing is going to be a spiritual advisor that I think everybody has to have at their table. This person could be a pastor. This person could be someone who you respect from a spiritual perspective. The Bible says that where two or three gather in his name, that's when he, capital H, God is in the midst. And so if you can have a spiritual advisor that is connected with you on your journey in your life, that's holding you accountable, that's encouraging you, praying for you, covering you, giving you guidance, I believe God is going to be in the midst of your life because he said two. So as long as you have that person, man, that's going to be amazing. Another one is something that I talk about in my book is a partner, your spouse. I have an empty table on the opposite side of my table because I'm a single man. But I believe a man I find his favor when he obtains his wife. But then a wife was pulled from man, right? So it's like when you're going back to your husband, it's like, yo, now you can really be used because that's where you came from. We both now are in a process of needing each other, and our lives are just going to explode because you came
Mm.
back to the body. I got my favor. I'm happy. We can do this thing together. Let's go bless the community. So I think finding that spouse. Then the last one that I talk about in the book is, which a lot of people are going to be shocked about, but it's going to be health. Having someone at your table who can hold you accountable about your health. I think
Yeah.
some of us are not taking care of our bodies, not taking care of our mental. We have people who will go do window shopping therapy, but won't go to actual therapy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, wait a minute, you'd rather go shop and spend your money because what do they call that? Retail therapy. And I'm like, so you'll go do retail therapy, which what gets you in more debt because more than likely you're going to put it on a credit card, then going to see a therapist, a licensed Christian therapist, let's say, to get your brain fixed. Because I say this all the time, Amy, that your business, your number one business in the world is not the career you work on. It is not the job you work for. It's not even your business if you're self-employed. You have to mind your business because your mind is your number one business. And so
Mm.
if we're not controlling this and growing this and having someone to help us nurture this brain of ours and evolve it, what's the point? I can give you $1 million today, but if this brain is not right, if you don't have a spiritual advisor, and your health is not good, you're not going to be able to sustain and multiply that $1 million. So those would be the three people that I would say you gotta have. And in today's day and time and world, we don't really talk about it. And inside this book,
Right.
I really talk about how my pastor, how my spiritual advisor has helped me make millions. I've talked about how being healthy mentally, spiritually, and physically has helped me make more money. And I'm even talking about in the book on how if you're single, how even preparing for your spouse is going to
Yeah.
help you become wealthier. And so those are three things I would say.
Ah, that is excellent. And Anthony, I guess I'll have to add you to my prayer list for a spouse because I do
Yes,
love to pray for those who are single and waiting for
please,
God's gift. And
please
singleness
do.
is a unique calling and a gift in itself, and you have stewarded it well. So I'm sure she is out there before too long. But Anthony, all of this was so good. I would love to comment more and ask more questions, but I know we're short on time. I so appreciate. I just really admire the work that you've done and how you continue to put it out there and speaks from such a clear biblically based mindset about abundance, about wealth, about stewarding your life well. So great job. Keep up the
Thank you
good
so much.
work and just know I'm cheering you on.
Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate you for having me on the podcast. It means a lot, and hopefully your listeners got something from it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This conversation was so good. Man, Anthony O'Neill really brought it for us today. And I'm hopeful that he has helped remind you that true abundance is more than money. It's about living with freedom, faith, and purpose. And when you steward the gifts that God has given you, your time, relationships, resources, and calling, you will reflect his goodness and fulfill his unique purpose for your life. Now, if this episode resonated with you or if you learned something today, don't keep it to yourself, friend. Share it with another friend who might need some encouragement today or even on your social media. Of course, you could go thank Anthony as well for being on this podcast and being such a stellar guest. Now, if you're curious about how your personality type or your Enneagram type influences your financial decisions, get that free clarity call with me booked today. It's really the perfect next step to explore how you can align your approach to money and a lot of other things with God's vision for abundance in your life. Also, don't forget to check out the show notes and get on that wait list for the Wholehearted Abundance Summit happening in March. If you register early, you'll receive an exclusive bonus, so don't miss out. Now, I'm excited to continue to talk more about wholehearted abundance this spring with you. And in addition, we're going to be doing a series called Building Your Wholehearted Table. It's really several different conversations revolving around the idea of who are you inviting to sit at your table this year, not from a lens of exclusivity, but with intentionality and purpose. So that way, the people that you need speaking into your life and impacting you on a regular basis are there, helping you really flourish in faith, family, and finances in this year ahead. Remember, friend, we're all broken, we're all blowing it, but the brave one does something about it.